G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/Idontworkherelady. Now if you love this video, chuck a like on the Barbie, chuck a prawn on the like button, and enjoy the video. Posted by user Hysterical Realist, titled, Karen Follows Me into the Men's Restroom. A few weeks ago, I was visiting my local big box bookstore, looking for good clearance items before the store closed permanently. The dead mall it was attached to was being demolished. The store has no dress code, but the employees do wear lanyards, and I wasn't. So I was browsing around my preferred sci-fi section when I realized I needed to use the nearby restroom. So I headed in that direction, which happened to be the next mid-store customer service counter. Karen notices me, points herself directly in front of me, and blocking my path to urinary destination, says, "I don't know why you don't keep that desk staffed, but I really need your help finding my book. Are you going to help me or not?" "Not," I say, remembering the urgency of my business, and I step around her with a variation of, "I don't work here," continuing to my destination, thinking that will be the end of the encounter. It's not to be. I hear her voice rising in pitch and volume, on its way to full Karen Banshee, as she literally throws me into the men's room, and I'm convinced she was about to grab my arm and pull me around to face her. Being conscious of social norms about public exposure, I made it into a stall and locked the door for privacy. That didn't stop her from knocking on the door and threatening to get me fired before she heard the really solid stream hit the water, and, I'm convinced, realized for the first time what it was she had done. I heard her embarrassed sounding squeak/huff, and she hightailed it out of there. I finished my thing and washed my hands, and came out to witness her being escorted out of the store by a properly lanyarded employee. I only caught the tail end of the conversation where Karen stated she was never coming here again, and the employee had a classic response, "Neither am I. We're closing." That's a good one. Posted by user SaucyB583, titled, "No, I am not staff, and no, you can't crash my dad's wedding." About a year ago, my dad was getting married. As it was his second wedding, he did not want it to be a huge event, and neither did his fiancée. Thus, they decided to have their wedding with just 17 guests at the bookstore where they met. Oh, it was so cute that I wanted to throw up. He asked me and my sisters to guide the other guests to the room where the ceremony would be held, since we were there early to set up. The bookstore was something of a maze, as bookstores often are. My dad's wedding was being held on the second floor, so my sisters and I were stationed at various places on the first floor, leading to the stairs, which were hidden in a little corner in the back. My sisters and I were dressed up, but not wearing name tags or aprons like the people who actually worked at the bookstore. That did not stop a parade of people stopping by and asking where to find certain books. I don't know what it was about my appearance in particular, but most customers came to me instead of my sisters. I get that I was standing in a particular spot and that I could have looked like I was there to answer questions, but the staff were busy shelving books, dusting, making coffee, and generally being busy, so I would have been a pretty lousy staff member just standing around like that. One customer in particular approached me and asked if I knew where the painting that used to hang in the store was now. I answered that I did not work here and was simply guiding guests to the room where my dad's wedding was to be held. The man looked incredulous and asked me several more questions about the painting, including who the artist was, what the medium was, the size of the painting, and what the subject was. After I answered that I did not know any of those things, he was satisfied that I did not in fact work at the bookstore. He then proceeded to say how much he loved weddings, no matter who was getting married. He asked where the wedding was being held, and if he could go take a peek. I answered that that would be really weird, given that it's a private ceremony, and my dad would probably appreciate it if he didn't. He laughed it off and said, "Oh, well, I'll come by and crash the wedding later. I just love weddings so much." I practically begged him not to crash my dad's wedding, even just to watch, because there were so few guests that it would be painfully awkward to have some random man smiling in the back. After a few moments of us going back and forth, and him promising he'd be there whether we liked it or not, he finally agreed to leave the wedding alone. He stayed for a suspiciously long time in the bookstore, watching all the guests come in. He smiled ridiculously as my now stepmother walked in with her dress and headed upstairs, provoking her to ask me and my sisters, who was that creepy smiling guy standing around watching the entourage? We responded, he's just some guy who really liked weddings and asked if he could crash yours. To our great relief, he did not show up at the ceremony, but the whole time I was worried about it. Sorry for being distracted during your wedding, Dad. Posted by user Bulbasaur but an onion. I would eat Bulbasaur if he was an onion. Titled, I guess the grocery store employs dog trainers now? This was a while back before COVID-19, when I worked at a pet retail chain as the lead dog trainer. Where I worked was a short walk to the grocery store, and I often would go there on my lunch break to grab something to eat. I got confused for an employee many times, but this one took the cake. The cast are me, Karen, and Karen's 3 friends. It was a pretty nice summer day, and I was feeling pretty great, as I'd crushed it in dog training sales earlier that day, and the sun was shining. I was still wearing my grey athletic shirt with huge white letters on the front and back that said dog trainer, as well as having a large blue bait bag, a pouch for holding dog treats and other kit, on my belt. I was kneeling, grabbing a box of plastic spoons, when I heard Karen say, "Hey, excuse me, look at me." I glance over and look away, as I'm sure they mean someone else. Karen guffaws to her friends. "Oh, no wonder these people don't make a living wage. I can't believe how rude employees are these days. Hey you, look at me when I'm talking to you." I'm taken aback by the gall of this woman. I stand up and turn around. "Finally! You were in your own little world there, huh? Next time you need to ask the customer if they want any assistance before they have to try and get your attention. It is very incredibly rude." And she turns to the gaggle of Karens behind her for arse pats and reassurance. "We need you to get us X brand of bread and Y brand of ice cream. Oh, and show us where the chips are. We're in a hurry." "I'm sorry, I don't actually work here, but," gesturing to an employee nearby, "they do and can probably help you." And I start turning to walk away. Excuse me, you are right here. You should help. Stop trying to make other people do your job. Now find our stuff before we get your manager." Karen's friends start exchanging looks and definitely notice my shirt. I say, "Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm on break," as I'm trying to grab a few things myself. "I'm sorry, but I can't help you." "Even if you're on break, you still need to help customers. That's your job." Karen's friends try to gently get her attention, whispering that they don't think the grocery store employs dog trainers. Karen completely ignores them and continues her tirade. "I can't believe how disrespectful you are. You can't even do your job. I bet you didn't even graduate high school with this attitude." "Lady, for the last time, I do not work here. If you'd tried to read the 2 words on my shirt, you'd notice that it says I'm a dog trainer. Dealing with bitches is my job, so unless you're going to start paying me, I have better things to do." I walk away and overhear Karen's friends trying to calm her down, and also holding back laughs because they tried to warn her. I finished grabbing my items and hightailed it back to work. Never saw that Karen again, and I am still waiting for another rude interaction so I can use the bitches line again. TLDR, Karen was very rude and entitled even when I tried being polite. Told her I was a dog trainer and only deal with bitches when I'm paid to. Posted by user Dashing Sands, titled Revenge at Last. Now comes a story of revenge that may make someone's day. So to start off, I used to work at a big warehouse store chain. Let's call it CJ's. I worked there for nearly 5 years, finally got fed up and had to leave. I now work at an amazing factory job and I love it. Been there a little over 8 months, which makes this story even more fascinating in a way. Yesterday, I was at CJ's getting groceries and talking to a couple of my old friends that still work there. I'm wearing my factory uniform, clearly not wearing the red and blue that workers at CJ's wear. My factory uniform is black. In walks an older woman that we all know of. Let's call her Karen. She was what you might call a problem customer. Nothing was ever what she liked, all the employees were idiots, etc. But she had a real hatred for the male employees. Why? Who knows? But she treated me and the other male stock clerks horribly. Karen spots me talking to my friends, and Karen never liked me. Even though I had on a mask and again was wearing my factory uniform, she comes right on over, tells us all we're lazy workers and that we don't get paid to stand around and talk. She then orders me to help her lift some cat litter into her cart. I say, no, I don't work here anymore. Get someone else to do it. Excuse me? You do too work here. You've helped me in the past. Now help me get some cat litter. I haven't worked here in 8 months. I'm not doing anything. One of these guys will help you. Indeed, the 2 guys I was talking to were literally standing right there, but that didn't please Karen. Are you refusing to help a paying customer? I'll get you fired. At that point, I was rather fed up. I just smiled at her and said, okay, go ahead. Get me fired from here, you tramp. That went as well as you'd expect, and she immediately went to the service desk. Minutes later, Karen came back with one of the managers. And who was the manager she got? The one I got along with extremely well when I worked there. As soon as they reached me, I hear her say, "That's the one. Fire him for insulting me and not helping me." He just walked over and asked me how my new job was going. Karen's look equals priceless. Hotel Trivago. TLDR, Karen yells at me for not helping her at a place that I haven't worked at in months and ends up looking like a jerk. Posted by user Paralyzed, titled, "In Mother Russia, Karen Fires You." Hey all, for my first post I'd like to share a little story that happened to me a few years ago. Sorry, this will take a while. For background, me, 27 male, and my family are from Russia, but moved to Germany when I was 8, and my parents have a lot of Russian friends here, so we still have a lot of contact to Russians. One friend of our family owns a pretty good Russian restaurant. It's pretty big and well visited, and on weekends there are even live musicians and a lot of dancing and so on. It's very nice, and 200 people on a Saturday is pretty normal for them. He called my mum once and asked if my sister, 18 at the time, wanted to be waitress for this evening and earn a bit of money. My sister was happy and said yes, but she had no car/license at the time, and the restaurant was like 55 kilometers away. And my parents were out on that day, so my dad asked me if I could get her there and bring her back. I had no plans, so I said yes, but since I didn't want to bring her there and leave to come back 2 or 3 hours later to get her, I decided to wait there. The restaurant is pretty classy, so it's pretty normal for guests to go there with their best clothes on. I didn't want to look weird, so I put on my suit and bring her there. So that's the background. Sorry for this long intro. Now to the main story. It was pretty full at this evening. 250 plus guests, I guess. And the staff had a lot of work. Even the friend who is the manager makes service and works non-stop. It's loud but very entertaining. As said, the staff was very busy and I didn't want to stand in their way, so I stood aside and just enjoyed the music. The musicians do breaks sometimes, and one of them, let's call him Alex, had a few minutes break and came to chat to me for a little while. It's super loud, so we talk in like a club. How's work? What's new? Had any dates lately? Stuff like that. There was a little couch that we sat down on and shared memes on the phones to each other and relaxed a bit. Suddenly, I feel a finger on my shoulder. Entering Karen, a woman in her 50s, blue fancy dress, pearl necklace, a ton of makeup, and the typical Karen haircut. Pointed at me and waved, so I stand up and talk to her. I say, yeah? Wow, if I would work like you do here, I shouldn't wonder to get fired. You just sit there and don't serve the food like the others. I was shocked. The staff wears red vests with the restaurant's name on the back, and I was there in my usual black suit. Sorry? What? I don't work here. I got interrupted mid-sentence because Karen took her flat hand and put it in my face and turned away moaning. Don't you dare contradict me, street dog. In Russian, there is a word for that, which is hard to translate, but it means like filthy, no-rights creature. It's a very rude word. I'm like, the F? She went off to the bathroom. Alex, who has seen it all, took my arm and said, dude, the F. Relax, let's go outside and take a smoke. You look like you're going to explode any second. Yes, I wanted to run after her and tell her a few things, but I went outside and calmed down a bit. The manager came out and took a smoke break too, and asked me what's up. Alex told him the story and the manager went crazy about it. He apologized for the guest's behavior. Now the surprise. A guy standing outside nearby must have heard that and came right over, and says, the woman you're talking about, does she wear blue fancy dress, pearls, etc.? And we're like, yes. The guy looked pretty embarrassed and is like, that's my wife. We're all shocked, and the guy then apologized for his wife. He was completely ashamed and went back in. We all started laughing. I enjoyed the rest of the music acts, and 2 hours later, my sister and me went home. Still a funny story when I think of the poor guy married to Russian Karen. Sorry for this insanely long story, but I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, all. Posted by user Papa Steve Rocks. Yeah, Steve Owen does. Titled, Garden Center, I Do Not. Had a landscaping morning Saturday, and had to run out to the garden center for a few items before stopping for the afternoon. At the store, I must have looked the part, wearing cargo shorts, boonie hat, work boots, and a neck gaiter as a mouth covering. It's a this guy landscapes sort of ensemble. I'm walking with a purpose, and my items are at far ends of the store. A woman and teen son stand in the middle of the patio furniture, staring lasers into me as I hustled from weed killer to plant stakes. As I approached, she said, finally, we've been waiting forever. I didn't break stride as she said, are you going to help us? Don't you work here? I gave them a succinct, I do not, without stopping. 10 steps passed and I hear her say, what does he mean, I do not, to her son? Not much of an interaction, I know, but how can someone not understand I do not? It gets to the point. I feel bad for that kid. Posted by user PGE1967, titled, I don't and shouldn't work here because I don't speak Spanish. Coming across this sub reminded me of an incident that happened several years ago at a car dealership. I always regretted that I didn't think of all the clever comebacks I wished I would have said until much later. Anyway, this story happens in San Antonio, Texas. One thing about San Antonio is that about 63% of the population is Hispanic. I myself am Hispanic and got to Texas by the way of the military after I enlisted. I was not born or raised in an area that was predominantly Hispanic or in an area that Spanish was spoken so widely. On this day, my wife had dropped me off at a local dealership to pick up my car that was being serviced. As it wasn't quite ready, I began to wander around the new vehicles, really just looking around to kill time before they finished up my vehicle. At some point, the guy who the story is about comes in. Never really saw him until he was in front of me. He begins speaking to me in Spanish for quite a while, and when he finally takes a break and expecting me to respond, I simply tell him, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. This seemed to pee him off, and he indignantly asked, why the hell would this place hire someone who doesn't speak Spanish? I might add, he said this in perfect English without a hint of an accent. The only thing I could think to say at that moment was, they didn't. I don't work here, dude. With that, he huffed and walked away. I always thought it was so odd that I was in the US, and this guy actually thought a car dealership should only be hiring people that spoke Spanish. While I have had people automatically assume I speak Spanish because of the way I look, mostly at Mexican restaurants, I've never really had anybody be so rude about it before that or since then. Posted by user Sapphic John, titled, I am not a bouncer and I didn't steal your money. Hi all. I've had the misfortune to experience a lot of things in my 30-odd years that Redditors may enjoy. I'll start with one that made me laugh when my friend reminded me about it last night, and can add more if there is some interest. Been watching a few of these groups for a little while, and occasionally they remind me of my own experiences. I should probably introduce myself. I'm a male from the UK, late 30s, and I'm quite tall at 6'4", which seemed to make me stand out enough that I'm either a target or just the person who catches the eye of lunatics quite a lot. Cast for this tale, me. Hi. Phil, my friend who reminded me about this story, DG1 to 6, a group of drunk girls who made a small mistake but couldn't get past it. Bouncer, big fella, not too bright though. Manager, nice bloke, sorts it all out. Here we go. The language is as best as I remember, but I had been drinking, so exact words are going to be a stretch. A few years ago, I was hanging around drinking outside a bar in Manchester with my friend Phil. My friend smokes, but I don't. You mostly need to go outside to designated smoking areas to smoke in the UK. As I'm stood there talking to my friend, admittedly quite near the door to the bar, a small group of very drunk girls gathers in front of me. I don't really notice for a few moments as I'm talking, but after a short while, I pick up that there is a little crowd stumbling about in front of me, and they are looking a bit agitated. Lots of huffing and tutting. I looked over them briefly and noticed they were all carbon copy blondes with these same haircuts. Not a Karen cut, sadly. Mid-30s, small black outfits, very short dresses, all quite overweight. No judgment, just an observation. And all drunk like it was their first time out in the town. The only thing separating them was the level of fake tan they had gone for. It ranged from orange to a kind of mahogany color. I'm oblivious to why they are standing there or who they might think I am at this point, but I assume I am in the way a little bit. So I move to the side away from the door, and they start to enter the bar with a few slurred variations of "finally" and "frickin' useless." It seems obvious to me now that they thought I was the bouncer/doorman who had to let them in, but at the time, I just thought I must have been in their way a bit. They didn't seem to be a bouncer, as it was a quiet night, so an easy mistake to make. I should also mention it was cold and rainy in Manchester, as it usually is, so I was wearing a big coat. It was dark in colour, but wasn't the usual bouncer uniform of black coat with SIA identification on the sleeves. SIA is Security Industry Authority, if memory serves. I actually did work door security for a couple of years at student bars and clubs in the past, so I know a little bit of this, but that was years ago. Most unbouncers tend to be quite big guys, as it's a physical job when crap goes down with fighting and such, and I'm in that category because of my height and build. A few minutes pass, and 4 of the girls stumble out of the bar again and make a beeline right for me. I wasn't as close to the door anymore, but I was still outside with my friend. The leader of this gaggle was massively drunk and had obviously been elected as that night's spokesperson. She will be DG1. She did most of the speaking and slurring, and the rest mostly just said supportive things to back her up and swore. She said, "You need to come on and save my friends." I'm oblivious and I'm like, "Sorry, what?" "Come on, they're in trouble," and grabs my arm, which surprised me a bit. I'm still oblivious and say, "Who's in trouble?" I also pull my arm away, which seems to annoy her. "Come with me now, my friends are being attacked." And she grabs my arm again. Phil says, "You better go, sounds important." He was laughing as he had figured out the problem already. I say, "Okay?" Confused as I still don't get it. But I was just drunk enough to think they might be trying to be funny or pick me up or something. "Finally, quick! Yeah, hurry!" She leads me into the bar and up to a sort of dance floor area where the other 2 girls are dancing and kissing 2 guys. I'm still a bit confused why I'm here, and now notice that DGs 1 to 4 are staring at me expectantly. I'm still confused and say, "So what am I doing here?" And they shout over the music, "Kick those guys out of here, they're attacking my friends." Seems like they're okay to me. Why'd you drag me here? We're on a girls' night out and these guys aren't even with us. Yeah, we don't even know them. Okay, but why do I need to be involved? DG1 ups the drama a bit and says, "They're being assaulted and you just want to frickin' watch?" No, I don't really care. I'm gonna go back outside now. I turn to walk out. DG1 shrieks something sweary at me and tries to slap me in the face. She misses, spins and hits the floor. I am walking away and out now, and when I turn, having taken a few steps to get back to the door, DG1 is stumbling to her feet and struggling a bit. I walk outside and hope that's all the weirdness I'll have tonight. I find Phil, who is laughing at me having watched the drama from the door, and says, "You're not free yet. I think you're in trouble now, and motions toward the door. The 4 girls have found a real bouncer who must have been inside and are pointing at me, looking furious. They come over and they're halfway through their version of the story to the real bouncer. They say that's the one, that's the bouncer who refused to effing help us and then knocked me over. He needs to be effing sacked. This guy? Pointing at me. Things suddenly click in my brain. Wait, bouncer? Do you think I'm a bouncer? Yes, you. Of course, you let us in. He doesn't work here, mate. Yeah, he does. Don't you even know each other? No, I don't work here. I'm stood here with a pint in my hands. Why do you think I work here? You're dressed as a bouncer and you let us in. By wearing a dark jacket? I didn't let you in. I just moved out of your way when you went in. You came inside with us to sort out those guys. Why would you do that if you don't work here? You didn't give me much time to think. Before I knew it, you grabbed me and pulled me inside. Hang on a bit, I'm lost. Look, he's the bouncer, black jacket, security information on his sleeve, and he's got the radio and all that. Look at me, I'm just stood here with a beer in my hands. Screw this, I don't care what you are, but you pushed me to the ground and took my money. She's doubling down a little now, as I presume she thought this would help her. I never touched you. I left after you pointed out some people kissing and you tried to slap me. Missed and fell over. What money are you talking about? Thought the mention of money was a bit random? We paid you to get in. They obviously didn't. It wasn't even a bar you paid to get in. The bouncer looks very lost, but seems to be getting an idea that he better react soon. So you hit her and took money off her? No, none of this happened. I think this lot are a bit drunk. DG 1 to 4 all chime in with various, yes he did, he frickin' hit her and stole her purse. Again, another fun little addition. Right, give the purse back. What purse? I don't have a purse. This is all bullcrap. Bouncer speaks into the radio, and another bouncer has now shown up. He's going around to look at the cameras and see what's what. I'm lucky it was a relatively quiet night, as normally I think I'd just have been kicked out of the place just to stop the drama and save time, but as it was slow, they decided to investigate. The DGs have all started getting a bit hysterical now they have the real bouncers, and the story has been embellished to include me taking money off them at the door to let them in, which they want back of course. The fact I apparently gave this poor girl a bit of a kicking, and I was supporting the guys who were trying to assault their friends. It takes a few minutes, but just as they're whipping themselves up into a frenzy, the bar manager comes out and asks me if I'll go inside to speak to him. I just want to go home now, but as it will get me away from the screeching, I agree. I instantly regret it, as I get shepherded into the back of the bar to the little room the security guys use. I assume I'm going to get a kicking, but the manager gets the second bouncer to show me the 2 clips on the security screen. The first one shows me vaguely moving out of the way when they go into the bar, definitely not taking any money, and the second shows me inside the bar talking briefly to DG1, her friend going to slap me and tripping herself up. We have a little laugh and they say I'm fine. I say I'm going to go, but they suggest if the woman calls the police, it might be better if I hang around so it can be sorted with this evidence. Apparently, it's quite common for people to lose things like purses and try to blame others in pubs. I ask what they're going to do with a group of girls, and they say they're going to be asked to leave. We go back outside, and the girls are still going on about what apparently I did. When the manager asks them to leave, they go really mad for a few seconds protesting. I've looked at the CCTV, and this guy didn't do anything. You actually tried to hit him. I never. He frickin' slapped me and stole my fudging purse. I'm calling the police. Well, feel free, but as I said, I've got the footage, so you'll make yourself look a bit silly there, love. No, I won't. I bet you do this all the time. Rob people and share the money. You've been asked to leave, so please go. I'm not going until he gives me my purse back. I don't have it. Are you sure you didn't drop it when you fell over? I did a smirk here, which may have been an error. You smarmy little... She launches herself at me, but the bouncer, with reflexes like a cheetah, manages to catch her in mid-air and holds her there. This was no mean feat, as she was a pretty large girl. She starts kicking and screaming, but it doesn't seem to trouble him too much. He holds her there for a few seconds as she runs out of steam. DGs 2 through 4 slowly seem to realize it isn't going to work, and quieten down and seem to sink back a bit to get away. As DG1 catches her breath, The two girls, 5 plus 6, who had been inside and hadn't really been involved to this point, come out of the bar arm in arm with the two guys. Digi5 says, "Hi, Karen." Not her real name, of course, it was actually Chantel or something chavvy. "We've bumped into our fellas, so we're heading home. Have a good night. Oh, by the way, here's the purse you asked me to hold." They hand over the purse, which she takes very sheepishly, and DG5 and DG6 leave with the guys. The remaining girls have all but disappeared now, and appears the show is over. Bouncer releases DG1 and asks them to leave. They seem a bit defeated and slink away apart from DG1, who is hanging back a bit. She turns to me and looks at me for a second. I was expecting an apology for the misunderstanding or a final screw you, but she actually says to me, "Will we get in next week?" "Sorry, what do you mean?" "We aren't barred, are we?" Bouncer and manager look at each other and shake their heads a little bit, quite unsure why she still thinks I work there. I'm seizing an opportunity and said, "You are, I'm afraid. Your friends can come back any time, though." And the manager, deciding it's easier to go with me on this one now, says, "Yes, that's right. I'm afraid we can't have people assaulting the staff. If you leave now, we won't call the police." She then joins the rest of her troupe, and they dejectedly walk away and leave the smoking area and the bar with a bit of muttering. Bouncer, looking a bit confused, says, "So hang on, do you work here or not?" "No, sorry mate, I just stood in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was just taking the pee out of her at the end." "Okay, so how come she's barred?" Manager says, "Don't worry about it. Just get a picture of the video and put her on the wall of shame. Presume this was how they tracked the troublemakers." "Right, all sorted. Talking to me now. Gonna get you a drink for all the trouble?" "Better not, boss, not while I'm working." Cue a wry smile from the manager and a little bit of laughter from the few people who had gathered around and had picked up on what was going on. Sadly, everyone didn't stop and clap, but it was enough for me. Phil and I got a free round of drinks out of it, and I still go to that bar every now and then to this day. Wow, that was really long in the end. I never could figure out why they wanted the friends' boyfriends to be kicked out. Presume it was just because a girls' night out is sacred, and they didn't like the intrusion, but this seems extreme. Thanks for reading, and sorry it didn't end with the police called, and Karen or group of Karens all get carted off to the cells. Have a great day, everyone. As I said, I've got a few of these if people are keen. I can add some more when I get time. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love you to subscribe because I love your face and I love seeing you here every single day that you are here in this video. I don't know what else to say today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. I do have a second channel that's called Markee 2. Link should be up on the screen somewhere here if you don't have adblock installed. If you don't know where to find the channel, you can go to my main page. Just click on the Markee face and it should be on the right somewhere there, or on channels if you're on phone. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.